Welcome, everybody. We are live on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. This is the Going Broadway podcast. We're on episode number 30. This is unbelievable. Yeah. So I am Alex. To my left is Cole. I hope you guys out there are doing well and everybody's healthy. Cole, what's going on?
Man, you know how I'm doing this morning. I came in on a rant.
And we're going to share that rant with you guys here in just a second. Shout out to everybody that's already said good morning. Justin, James, Sean, William, Mark, the bearded one, the professor, Lynn, Dusty, Jerry, William, Mark, Thomas. Good morning, everybody. Special shout out to a few guys that are helping us out with sharing our shows every week. Lynn, Thomas, Matthew, Max, and Alan. I appreciate you guys once again for helping us get the word out about our show. Now, that being said, Cole mentioned that, Adrian, good morning. How are we doing? Cole mentioned right off the bat that we had a little bit of a discussion before we went on, and we're going to share that little rant with you guys. So, Cole, I'm going to give the floor to you.
First off, the bearded one, I missed you last week.
We did. We missed you, Mark.
Picking on me. So, anywho. Yeah, so I'm in a handful of wrestling discussion groups, and the common thing I've been seeing pretty much yesterday.
Pause real quick before we get into it too much. Sorry, I was remiss in shouting out my guys at Beltomania. I've gotten a few shirts from them. I planned on wearing a different shirt, and I need to, I don't know, I might need to get a new one because the neck is like super stretched out on it. But Beltomania, they're friends of the show. Check them out. They have a Pro Wrestling Tees page. So, again, I just wanted to shout them out, and that's it. Resume. Continue.
So I'm in a few wrestling groups, and especially yesterday, I just kept seeing posts of people complaining about AEW and the fact that they are using quote unquote recycled WWE guys and putting them on their main card or in the title picture, or
guys and storylines,
giving them major pushes or whatever you want to call it, and complaining about that. I also saw people complaining about a very standard casino ladder match for a number one contender spot at Double or Nothing.
Sorry, just this whole thing cracks me
and
up.
And if it was just one post, I would have been like, okay, like that's just one person's opinion. But then I literally am seeing all these people complain about the booking and calling it crap booking and all this stuff, and my mind is just blown. Okay, so first and foremost, just about any company promotion who has ever gained traction, who has ever been able to start to put the pieces together, goes and gets a few names that have weight to them, have value to them, and typically they are WWE/WWF guys. They have that kind of clout in a sense to be able to help push your card to the next level.
Right.
I, for one, am not upset that Brody Lee and Jon Moxley are having a match. It was terrible in WWE. It was a terrible match. This is a chance to have the match done in a very well done way. I'm not mad that we're having a Chris Jericho, Matt Hardy feud or storyline, whatever you want. These are some of the best promos these guys have cut in a long time. Maybe 10 years late on the match, but I'm happy that I'm getting it. I'm glad that Jake Hager's there. I'm glad that some of these guys are getting a shot and a chance to be able to prove that they are a number one or top talent. You even, Talk is Jericho just had the Revival / the Revolt on there.
Yep.
And they talked about how they were fighting for tag team wrestling to be taken seriously.
Yep.
I'm glad that these guys are out of WWE so they have a shot to prove who they are. Someone brought up Cody Rhodes' name. I was like, Cody Rhodes should be known for AEW, not for his terrible stint in WWE, not for lack of trying. He's talented, but for terrible booking and storyline writing. I'm so done with seeing these negative posts about AEW putting pieces together with guys who have experience, who have a fan base, who have a lot of things going for them. Why wouldn't they put the belts on Jon Moxley? Why wouldn't they want Brody Lee, who actually has the Dark Order going pretty decent? Like, I've been enjoying it.
It's been better lately for sure.
I thought it was going to be a bust until Brody Lee got there, and then I still had my reserves. And he's been killing it. And it's not because it was because Brody Lee came in acting like Luke Harper. It's because Brody Lee got to come in and be who he wanted to be creatively. And so I've enjoyed it. I had to get on my soapbox for a second, because if you know wrestling history, you look back, TNA Impact didn't gain traction until a lot of these guys started coming there out of WWE/F. You can even look at WCW. Some of the ECW people, like there's always been transitional changes for wrestlers who have switched promotions in hopes to try to make that promotion the best one. If you watch Dark Side of the Ring, you'll see that UWF had a lot of guys that had traction, that were known, that the roster was what was scary for people who were wrestling fans, because it had such a stacked roster. So
I'll tell you what, let's and by the way, guys, we're going to completely bypass like the usual headlines opening of our show that we usually do. But I want to tackle everything you just said and kind of break it down piece by piece a little bit. By the way, guys, I don't know how I lugged this thing around I've been to a couple AEW events. This thing is just ridiculously heavy. This is one I cannot just after about like 5 minutes holding that thing over your shoulder is just ridiculous. So anyway, it's just going to sit here for now. Let's break this down a little bit. So at least as far as the Brody Lee, Jon Moxley, that's going to be a little quicker to talk about, because again, WWE had their chance, excuse me, with that program, and they ran a Shield versus Wyatt family and things like that. And not that they did that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that Moxley or Dean Ambrose at the time and Brody Lee, a la Luke Harper at the time, they had singles matches, and they might have even had Intercontinental title matches. Don't remember any of them, for what it's worth.
Right.
I mean, and to me that tells me they weren't
memorable.
That
Luke Harper one had to have been a mid card. He's never been in the
No. Yeah, agreed. They didn't do it right the first time. So AEW sees the chance, okay, well, we see potential here. Let's give them another shot and have it done right. Because, again, with WWE and AEW are very different in the sense that WWE is and not that there's anything wrong with this necessarily, but it can be handled better. WWE is more structured when it comes to a specific talent's matches, the flow of it, what they do in the ring. I mean, they've adjusted guys' moveset because they didn't feel like it fit with WWE's moniker, or maybe that's not the best word for it. They didn't do it right the first time, so AEW is like, okay, well, we'll give him more freedom to, for one thing, mic work. Let's look at that aspect of it. Luke Harper was never given a chance to talk on the mic. He's excellent on the mic, in my opinion. I mean,
if he did, it was that Southern.
Well, yeah, I mean,
he didn't get to be who he wanted to be.
No, and we mentioned before, he's very intelligent, very articulate, and my thought process at the time was, okay, whenever he made his debut, my thought process at the time was, okay, this is a pre-shot vignette. They could have done it in multiple takes. I'll believe when I see it that he's actually good on the mic live. He proved last night that he is. Yeah.
With no crowd.
No crowd. So there's that segment. Let's look at the whole Casino Royale ladder match for an AEW title shot. I had people, on our Going Broadway podcast Facebook page, we had people say, they're, maybe one person, I don't want to say people, but it was noted that it's someone stealing WWE's idea for the match. It's going to be just like Money in the Bank. Number one, we don't know if this is going to be like a cash-in situation. It could just be whoever wins this match gets a future title shot. Number two, let's say it is a similar, Money in the Bank kind of stipulation where they can cash it in any time. This wasn't WWE's idea in the first place. This was Chris Jericho's idea. This came from his mind. So my thought process on that is if Jericho's with AEW, if this was his idea, they can do whatever they want with it. I mean, it's not like it's, obviously if there was some kind of like I don't even, you can't copyright an idea.
That's like saying you can't do cage matches. You can't
right, exactly.
Like, let's not do any other kind of match that's out there that's been done for years in wrestling, not WWE. We can't mistake WWE for wrestling as a whole. The ladder match number one contender thing has been done way before Money in the Bank was even thought of for a number one contender. So continue. Sorry.
No, that's all right. I'm just kind of breaking this down piece by piece. I mean, I'm not spending a whole lot of time on any of them. So there's that. The Jericho Matt Hardy thing, again, I don't even remember if they did it in WWE or not because Matt Hardy was never really as high on the card as Jericho was. I mean, they kind of just threw away Matt Hardy during, the stint that Jericho was there. They had him do his version 1 thing. They had him with the Cruiserweight title. I think they put the U.S. belt on him for a while, but they just continued to have him do programs with the Cruiserweight division. They had him do a program with MVP for the U.S. belt. So it wasn't like they didn't ever put him in a prominent role like they did Jericho. So there was never an opportunity to do that. It might be 10 years late, like you said, but they're making it. They're more than making it work. I mean, it's a good storyline, and we'll get to the recaps here shortly. But I would really love if they would do this. So I'm getting ahead of myself. Last night, whenever they had the street fight to close the AEW match, they had Matt Hardy to change a tire throughout the match to like go with his multiple personas. I thought that was great.
Yes, the multiple persona thing is great.
I mean, like mid-match though,
yes.
I thought that was fantastic. And sorry guys, we'll get to some of your comments in just a second. We're just kind of going on a little bit of a rant here. So, and in terms of continuing to put the AEW title on someone that was with WWE, if you're AEW, if you're a new company, you're going to look to a well-known talent to put over for a new title if you want to keep it relevant. That's why we've been saying with the AEW TNT title, it needs to be put on Cody Rhodes if they want it. If they want it to be a legit championship going forward. In my opinion, you don't put it on Lance Archer. If you're wanting it to be legit, same thing. They put the belt on Jericho first. They have it on Moxley. I would not be at all surprised if they keep up this trend for the first 2 or 3 years in existence. It might go to somebody like MJF at some point. I mean, to be honest, if they put it on MJF now, I'd be okay with it. I mean, I think he's established himself already as a star. His vignettes are hilarious. They're the classic heel vignettes that do what they're supposed to do. They evoke an emotion from you watching it that make you hate him, but at the same time, if you know the wrestling business, you appreciate it. So, rant over, and then we'll get to the recaps here in just a second. I want to read some of y'all's comments. Let's see. I go back here.
There was a handful of them. So.
Yeah. Justin, I apologize. I know you mentioned earlier you got an AEW replica. You're supposed to get it yesterday, but it still hasn't shipped. I had planned on bringing this belt and showing it on the show before I saw that. I know how it is with carriers now, and everybody's behind. So just be patient. It will come. Let's see. Yeah, I had some guy saying nice belt. Dusty says taking from the belt/t-shirt combo. This show's title is AEW Mania. Yeah, Mark's exactly right. It's a Beltomania shirt. And just shout them out again. Mark said later in the thread that If you want a shirt like this, their website is getyourbam.com. It takes you straight to their Pro Wrestling Tees site. Again, Beltomania, friends of the show. You can check out their live show on their Facebook page every Tuesday at 7:15 p.m. Eastern, as well as Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I believe. I think I got those dates and times right. Bill says AEW is number one. Sean says we need more wrestling altogether, more companies. Everyone needs work. 100% agree. Let's see. Dusty says, let's not forget that the ones that are being recycled are the best on the mic right now. Hager, Moxley, Brody Lee, Archer will give you the best action in the ring right now. Oh no, a wrestling company is putting together a show with awesome mic work and in-ring matches. Who would have thought someone would do something like that? As far as Lance Archer goes, he's still got some work to do. I think the other three, Hager, Moxley, and Brody Lee, maybe Hager to some extent. I mean, he's gotten better, especially I think his MMA background has kind of helped. Lance Archer's still got some work to do. I mean,
I don't think Archer falls into my edition of recycled W. I mean, I know he had a career there.
I don't even remember him.
But,
he was Lance Hoyt. But
I think more of the argument is more of the more prominent names here in more recent times. And as things have changed with all the releases and stuff, expect to see more guys start to head that way. That's what this healthy competition creates.
Exactly.
This healthy competition creates. If you were whatever profession you're in, if there was another company who's going to give you more freedom, pay you the same or pay you better, like if there was better benefits, you would probably switch companies too.
Oh yeah,
and expect to be used the same way you were being used in another company or better. And so like some of these guys are switching because it's a better fit. Mm-hmm. They didn't go there so they could be the same D-, D+ talent that they would be treating as in another company. They went and progressed themselves. So it's like to sit there and act as if these guys coming over, they should take the back seat because they're recycled guys is silly. They left so they could be a main focal point of a company.
Exactly. My man Eddie is on here. Good morning, Eddie Williams. Anthony Turbocast, what's going on, brother? Lynn says, I feel for wrestlers free and clear, legally she/he should be able to go where they want and be used how they like. Exactly. That's the point we're trying to make. Jerry just hinted on, what's the word I'm looking for? He was reiterating what Cole said earlier. Look at the UWF that we just watched Dark Side about. Most of their roster was WWF. Sorry, guys. There's just a ton of comments. I can't read all of these.
D- WWF. We're talking about guys who were legit.
Yeah, I mean, you had Terry Funk,
McFoley.
Well, they weren't. He wasn't with WWF yet at the time. I mean, this was 1990. He would eventually go to WWF.
This is a guy that was talented, though.
Right.
That's my point.
I mean, you had Bob Orton. I mean, Andre made an appearance. I mean, they had plans for Andre to be there long term, but then Vince snatched him back up. By the way, we'll probably talk about that episode of Dark Side of the Ring on our on Monday's podcast.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Carmine says Alex has a fantastic taste in fashion. I try. Get it from the best though. Let's see. What else? William says the Revolt should do an expedition of tag team gold as Broken Hardys before they go to AEW. I mean, I'd be okay with the Revolt going straight to AEW. I mean,
it was pretty much well hinted in the Talk is Jericho.
Well, it's been hinted in the Beating the Elite series also.
Podcast.
It showed FTR up in the sky in the clouds. Cody had an FTR on his coffee cup, so I think it's all but.
I didn't realize that they have not met face to face.
They have not.
I thought they at least knew each other, but
nope.
I was mistaken. They have not even met face to face. So the fact that this rivalry exists solely over like social media is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah. Well, and funny story is, well, I wouldn't say funny story, but as far as these lights, we got to be more animated in here during our rants. Apparently,
there we go.
I really hate that this is motion activated lighting. Anyway. I'm not the one that pays for it, so I'll make do. So Omega and the Bucks, they didn't meet the New Day. I mean, they had like a little social media feud with them, and they didn't meet up until like a couple years after the feud started because they did like a gaming competition head to head or something like that. Dusty says first steel cage match was in 1937. First ladder match was in 1972. Mark Cyrus, the professor, if you're on here, I will allow you to confirm or correct that because I don't know if that is true. Let's see. Speaking of Mark, he says wrestling is about telling a long-form story or a long-term story. If it's 10 minutes or 10 years later, as long as the people involved have a history, it will work. 110% agree. Adrian says, has anyone seen what the TNT Championship looks like yet? No. I have heard rumors, though, and they're just that. They're just rumors. But I've heard rumors that it is going to look similar to the NWA television title, the WWF Hogan 85, the WCCW American title. But I've also heard it'll have like the laced edging on it. If that happens, that'd be fantastic in my opinion. Michael says Matt Hardy's split personality is brilliant. Brent says you're right, man. Those belts are so heavy. So the thing with the Mid-South North American that I had this past Monday, I was able to put it over my shoulder and it would just rest there. This AEW does not do that. So it's literally just like holding it the entire time. And I lugged it around at a Dynamite show as well as I went to AEW Revolution, lugged it around for 3 or 4 hours each time, and it was a workout for sure. Just a few more comments and then we'll get into our recaps shortly. Michael asks, why do you think WWE does not put talent in the crowd like AEW does? It adds so much to the show. I agree. I don't know why they don't do that. I don't know if WWE is just under the impression, well, AEW is doing that. We don't want to make it look like we're stealing from them. Again, it goes back to whatever makes your product better.
AEW is also getting heat for the COVID stuff. They had to make sure that they told their audience that they did all the safety precautions and went above and beyond to make sure their talents are safe. With them going back to a live show, where WWE is probably trying to avoid those arguments and whatnot. But I almost thought it sounded like there was pre-recorded cheering last night on AEW. I don't think that was the case. I think they just had those guys out there.
I think that they had mics out there probably,
that were amplifying it. But it almost sounded like that's how good it was, though. I'm actually giving it credit where credit's due. It almost sounded like there was a ton of people there to make it feel more energetic. So I give props where it's due.
Agreed.
That was good on their part.
Max says the best thing they could have done with Archer is pair him with Jake Roberts for the time being. Agreed. I mean, and Archer needs to take advantage of it from a career standpoint. I feel like he needs to get better in the ring. That is the only reason I could see them putting the TNT title on Archer is just because Jake Roberts is with him. Well, I'm just trying not to get ahead of myself as far as recaps. There were so many good segments between AEW and NXT last night. So we'll get there. Alan says I'm here, but I'm in training for work, being sneaky. I don't want to get you in trouble, brother. So if you need to jump off, jump off. Sean says seeing Jake in AEW right now, I don't know. Seeing Jake in AEW was the coolest. Jerry says, I want the UWF TV title now. Donnie says, pull the curtain, start my music, and give me my belt. Here I am. Okay, Mark confirmed it was 1937, the first cage match, but it was chicken wire, so take that for what it is. Last comment, Evander says, I find it funny with WWE empty arenas. I love being able to hear Michael Cole echoing in the background, especially during replays.
You would think they would edit that.
You would think, but all right. So now that our rant is over, let's actually talk some wrestling. And then Mark says 1972 Stampede Wrestling was the first ladder match. Awesome, Mark. Thanks for the statistics. I appreciate it. All right, so we'll talk about NXT last night first. Again, I felt like both NXT and AEW last night were pretty good. Yeah. I mentioned to Cole, I thought NXT felt a little rushed. I think they tried to fit too much onto a card. The difference also is NXT was taped, AEW was live, and I don't think you could really notice from a production standpoint that one was taped and one was live, because at least with AEW being live, I didn't notice a whole lot of errors. I don't know if if there was any kind of a tape delay that they had maybe a couple minutes to edit something out. I highly doubt it. But anyway, as far as NXT goes, I'm just glad we've got Ronaldo and Beth Phoenix back for commentary.
Yeah.
It just makes the world of a difference in my opinion. We've also got Tom Phillips on commentary as well. The first match is Johnny Gargano and Dominik Dijakovic. I thought it was a good opener, and something I've noticed, but I especially noticed it on last night's NXT, so I'm slightly jumping ahead, is the commentary team is very they're changing up how they refer to different moves, and I've noticed it's a lot of like the lucha style type moves. They're calling it different. They're calling it by different names, and I don't know if that's a purposeful thing. I don't know if we're going to see a story that comes out that says WWE is saying, hey, refer to these lucha style moves by a different name. But it's just an observation I've made. Like, for example, they don't call it the Hurricane Rana anymore. They've called it a Frankensteiner. Like for Rey Mysterio 619, Io Shirai pulled it during her match last night. I forgot what they called it, but they didn't call it a 619, but it was the exact same move. So I just found that to be interesting, and I wanted to mention it. It could be nothing. I could just be overanalyzing, but we'll see. Anyway, I thought this was a good opening match. You knew that Candice LeRae was going to get involved in some way, shape, or form. By the way, another point of I wanted to note, I'm really glad that they've given new interest music to Johnny Gargano. I never liked his old music in the first place. So I'm glad that they've given him a new...
Especially with his heel gimmick. Like
exactly.
His music was very superhero-ish. Like,
yeah,
very face.
And it didn't help, again, that I was not partial to it at all. I mean, I hated it. So anyway, it was a good back-and-forth match. We've mentioned on the show before that Dijakovic has a tendency to botch sometimes. I didn't see any of that in this match. I thought it was a good match that they both put on. It was a good... big guy versus small guy match, in a sense. Anyway, it was a good athletic match. Fast forward to the end. Candice LeRae gets the distraction. Gargano pulls off the turnbuckle. Dijakovic hits the turnbuckle. Gargano hits his one final beat, and he gets the win. A good opener. It served its purpose. But this was the one match that I didn't feel like, the one match on the entire card that I didn't feel like was rushed. I felt like the rest of the night felt, maybe not necessarily the Velveteen Dream and Adam Cole match, but the rest of the night felt rushed, in my opinion. So I thought this match had a good flow to it.
The Dijakovic match, him versus Gargano could have been a takeover match. Like, not necessarily the one that we saw last night, but that matchup would be like something that I could see happening at a takeover. And I will say that was probably the best Dijakovic match I've seen on NXT, because it was clean. There was no botches. There was no trying to do it, in a sense, of him trying to like do something cool so he gets a pop. Mm-hmm. It was all clean, and it actually made him look, even though he took the L, it made him look good. With the current push that Gargano has, I didn't expect Dijakovic to win that match. I think it was pretty clear that in some form or fashion, Gargano was going to win, or he was going to lose by disqualification. So they're really pushing hard for him and Candice to win right now. So I didn't see Dijakovic winning the match, but I thought it was probably the best match I've seen Dijakovic do in NXT. Just for the simple fact that it had no mistakes. It was clean. He worked with a great guy and made himself look really good in the match.
And I think the match would have been even better, too, if they would have had it on a takeover and they would have had more time, as opposed to, if they had it on a takeover, it would be on like a 4 or 5 match card that would have gone 3+ hours. But they threw it on a card that's 2 hours, and they had, 6 matches on it? Maybe 7? I don't...
Yeah, their match went like 10, 15
tops. Lynn says here in Canada, NXT is played on here today, so I'll have to wait. If you don't want spoilers, you might want to jump off here or mute us for like 15 or 20 minutes. Yeah, William says Jim Ross is also back on AEW commentary. Yep, we're going to get to AEW. Justin says, well, Frankensteiner was the original name. I don't know how long that move has been around. I mean, I know that the lucha style has been around since the 70s, give or take. I mean, maybe 70s, 80s, maybe. Again, Mark, if you're on here, you can help me out, bud. But, I mean, Frankensteiner was the original name, yes, that WCW gave it. I don't know how long that move has been around, so... Jerry says Sammy needs new music too.
Sami Zayn or Sammy Guevara?
Probably Sami Zayn.
Because I would agree with Sami Zayn. Sammy Guevara has one of the best music that I've in AEW.
I like Evander's comment. His music would have been better on a women's superstar.
It is kind of funny because his was very similar actually to Candice LeRae's when she was face. So I do agree with that.
Yeah, Jerry, I think, clarifies Sami Zayn.
Yeah, definitely. Because he's heel, I would agree.
So not fast forward, progressing, we get a vignette / promo from Imperium challenging for the NXT tag team titles. You knew this was coming, so no surprise there. It's
interesting that they're challenging for the NXT championships. Just because they're such a prominent part of the UK brand right now. I think it's interesting that it might be a sign that NXT doesn't really have anything going in the tag division right now. Because without Undisputed Era being in the tag title picture, it's like, who else do you use? And
right. And the fact that, I mean, limited roster plus NXT UK isn't doing anything right now. I mean, it works. I don't have a problem with it. Justin says in North America, Scott Steiner was the first. I'm 98% sure. Maybe I don't know. Again, I'm just saying I legit don't know. So, Lynn says it's okay. I'll be a trooper and stick it out. All right. So next match is for the interim NXT Cruiserweight title between Akira Tozawa and Jack Gallagher, which I'm not sold on this interim Cruiserweight title. If you want to put a title on somebody, just say we're stripping
Jordan
Devlin of the title and just put it on somebody else. I mean, you can run a storyline gimmick that says, hey, he hasn't been defended within 30 days, which wouldn't fit either, but I mean, if your WWE logic is completely thrown out the window and you can do whatever you want.
It does speak to the volumes that they obviously like Jordan Devlin. Mm-hmm. It shows that they have a plan for him. That there's
Shawn Michaels is very big on him.
There's something to be said there. I will say this: Paul Heyman is really big on Tozawa, though.
Yeah,
and
he's gotten a lot more TV time lately.
Tozawa's 2-0 in this tournament, and I think that speaks volumes to where he's headed. Whether or not he wins this tournament or not, I think it speaks volumes. I don't think he's the winner of this tournament. Spoiler alert, I think it's Kushida. I think this is the best way to build him up for right now until they're ready to use him properly. And he's 2-0 as well.
Yep.
I think this is just a way to get Tozawa some good match time on TV. And he's been shown on Raw here recently a lot, usually as enhancement talent. But when you hit Paul Heyman on your side, Aleister Black kind of talked about that. It's mind-blowing, and it's extremely helpful to have that kind of guy on your side.
Agreed. And it really speaks volumes backstage. So, like Cole said, Akira Tozawa got the win. I was really underwhelmed with this match, but again, it felt like the rest of the card up until the main event felt rushed. Maybe it was because they weren't given enough time to do their thing, but it just...
Well, Jack Gallagher is kind of boring to me.
I'm
not a fan of... I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just not a fan of his style. I've never been able to get into him. And Tozawa, I just don't think I've ever seen a whole lot of him. I didn't really watch 205 Live. Heavy, so it's kind of like I haven't really seen a whole lot of him, but I don't dislike him. I do like the El Hijo del Fantasma call out though. Like I like that there's kind of that they're kind of creating feuds or storylines out of this tournament at least, and it's not just like one and done matches.
Yeah, I can do without the promos after these cruiserweight title matches personally. I mean that's just my opinion. I agree that it kind of helps with progressing the tournament and like almost kind of integrating like a storyline into it, but it just, even Kushida at the end of his match did a promo. Both Kushida and Tozawa's promos just felt awkward in my opinion. I don't know. It might have just been me. I don't know. Again, just my opinion. A couple quick comments. Lynn says, "What's up with Kyle O'Reilly? Is he currently injured?" I don't think he's injured, but I think because he's a diabetic, I think he's concerned about working during the pandemic, and I think they're whether it's his choice, WWE's choice, or a mutual thing, I think they're keeping Kyle O'Reilly off the road at the moment. Justin says, "I thought WWE got rid of the 30 days thing, or was that just the rematch clause?" The 30-day thing is just convenient whenever they want to throw it into a storyline. I mean that the
just
30,
like rematch clauses.
Yeah, that's I'll even call it a gimmick. It's been around for years and years. I mean, I think legit back in the day, they, at least in the territories, they were very pro sticking with the, you have to defend the title within 30 days or you're being stripped of it. But ever since the 90s, probably, WWE just kind of throws it in. Jack Tunney was very vocal from a on-screen authority standpoint. You'd see him a lot saying, such and so hasn't defended the belt within 30 days. They're being stripped of the title, blah, blah, blah. Evander says, "I'm sorry to be mean, but when I attended Worlds Collide this past January, Devlin's head is way too big for his way too big for his body." Here we go. Okay, this is what I wanted to hear from Mark. He says, "Mexican wrestling in the form we more or less see today found popularity as a sport/art form in the early 1900s, but the origins of the lucha libre date back to 1863. So I would not be at all surprised if the Frankensteiner/Huracan Rana was used before Scott Steiner. If it wasn't, I will stand corrected. And who knows if it was even called a Huracan Rana when it first was used. I don't know." Dusty says, "Vince is known for quote unquote subject to change. This includes not just the card but everything because he's the owner and 90% out of the loop." I think 90% might be conservative. It might be higher than that. Anyway, all right, back to the NXT card. We get just a video package about the Real Heroes Project, how it relates to frontline workers on the coronavirus, which I applaud. We got to be more animated, Cole. We got to woohoo. I applaud WWE for doing these promos. And just from a personal standpoint, I do want to shout out our frontline workers, our folks in the medical field. I have friends that are doctors and nurses, and we appreciate the work that you guys are doing from the bottom of our hearts. It's again, we appreciate it. The hours that you guys put in, I can't even imagine. And so we thank you and we appreciate you guys very much. So the next match is Xia Li against Chelsea Green. I was very not impressed with this match. It was just progressing the storyline with Aaliyah and Xia Li, potentially teasing Aaliyah joining this Robert Stone brand. Chelsea Green gets the win.
I like Xia Li. I just don't think they're using her in any kind of storyline that makes sense right now. I get that they have to do a mid card to the women's division too, and that's kind of what they're doing with her. But she's really talented in the ring. Obviously, probably lacks mic skills or the ability to create a good storyline without somebody doing all the talking.
Right.
But I really like her. I wish there was
more opportunity,
going on with that.
Agreed. Let's see. We get a Velveteen Dream promo. Again, you guys got to remember, this is all taped. This was potentially taped before the Velveteen Dream, I'll call it, controversy, because nothing's been...
Yeah, it's went pretty quiet.
Yeah, and shocker. But anyway, we get to the debut of Karrion Kross and Scarlett. I was actually pretty excited going into this. They being WWE, very much showed that they are big on Karrion Kross, that they want to push him. because of his entrance. He had a
Oh my goodness.
very lengthy theatrical entrance, which I liked. I thought it was very well done, very well put together. And of course, he gets the win in a squash match against this Leon Ruff, who I've never heard of.
That's one of the best entrances I've seen in a while. Like,
and there was no crowd. I mean, that just speaks to
it was intense. The all the technical stuff that went into it. Scarlett killed it. You know, her animative stuff that she did.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it made me scared of him. I mean, like, and I watched this dude in Impact, you know, kind of take more of like a with the Austin Aries kind of, you know, faction.
More of a sinister kind of,
like, yeah, more of like a hitman for hire kind of gimmick.
Yeah.
This dude just looks creepy. Like, he is a scary looking dude, and that entrance was nuts. And his although it was a squash match, which we all knew going in it would be, man, like I thought it was pretty well done for just kind of introducing him to us.
Yeah. And Justin, just to clarify, I'm not trying to, you know, argue or pick a fight or anything. I'm just, I'll just read his comments. He says, the Frankensteiner was recognized as the best wrestling maneuver by the Wrestling Observer newsletter in 89 and 1990. It is a professional wrestling move. It was named by Scott Steiner, who used it as a finishing move. He goes on to say, also, origin of the Rana, Huracan Ramirez's Huracan Rana. Then Mark says, Scott Steiner invented the Frankensteiner. The difference between that and the Huracan Rana is so negligible as to not exist. The Rana in Huracan Rana refers to the double leg cradle pin, which follows the move Steiner patented and should get more credit for patenting. So, yeah, anyway. I did want to bring that up, though, because I just found it interesting. If you watch future programming, and AEW does it too. Like, for example, that where the guy dives through the ropes, the tope. So they'll still call it tope, but then they'll call it. Sometimes they'll just refer to it as a. What have they been calling it lately? I'm blanking on what they've referred to it as lately. But again, it could just be nothing. I could just be way overanalyzing it. But just keep an eye on that. It's something I've noticed over the last couple weeks, that some of these aerial lucha style moves, they're going away from the name that they've been calling it for the last few years. So, Justin, no, the Tope Suicida is what they've been calling it, but they've taken the Suicida name out of it because it means suicide dive, and I think they've taken the suicide Spanish translation out of it for, you know, obvious reasons. But they've been calling it something else lately. I just don't remember what it is. So, anyway, just keep an eye on that. Again, it could just be me. We get a promo with Matt Riddle and Timothy Thatcher, basically accepting the challenge for the tag title belts, which we found out will be on next week's NXT.
I don't like them paired together.
I don't either.
And I know they're big on Thatcher. Like, I know that they're trying to find a way to kind of keep him in the programming and whatever. Let that man go on a singles run. I know it stinks right now because Pete Dunne's not able to be a part of the roster, which means the tag belts are kind of off TV in a sense, and they don't really want to do that because Riddle is a decent attraction as well. But man, let him go 2-on-1 against some people and make that a storyline. Like, he's got no help, he's got no backup.
I think he needs this, whatever they're doing with Dexter Lumis. I think he deserves that spot.
Like, and they're big on Dexter Lumis too. So it's I don't know. They're boring. I mean, the Pete Dunne, Matt Riddle thing, I wasn't a huge fan of, but at least they both had a fan base and they were kind of able to make the serious and the goofy kind of work together.
But now they're trying to have them both be serious, and it doesn't work.
And Matt Riddle, like, his promos are just usually funny, and the Stature guy, like, there's just no. Last week they did that like bro game or whatever, and it was kind of funny, but it went stale really quick.
Oh, agreed.
And this one here was just like they're trying to make a catchphrase and stuff. I was like, you're trying to build a team that as soon as Pete Dunne comes back won't even be a team anymore. Like, I don't know. It just. I'm not a fan. That was the one.
No, I agree with you.
I didn't care for the vignette. I don't really care for the storyline in general. just because it does take the belt off of him with Imperium.
Yeah, I think what they need to do is if they want to put the belt on guys that are actually there and competing, or I should say that are able to be on the
prominent
cards,
tag team.
They need to if they're sold on putting it on Imperium, or if they're sold on putting it on anybody else, they just need to do this, do the same thing that they did with the SmackDown tag title belts recently. Just do a singles match with Matt Riddle and whoever else and say the tag titles are on the line. If Matt Riddle loses, he loses the tag belts. Because I agree. I think this, and I wasn't sold on Matt Riddle and Pete Dunne at first, but NXT WWE has changed my mind on it. I was on board, and then this pandemic hit, and it's like, well, we can't get that now. So I'm trying to be optimistic. Maybe they'll convince me that they'll make this work with Timothy Thatcher. So far, I'm not sold on it. Next match, I was excited about this. I want to read Mark's comment real quick. Thatcher and Riddle play really well together. They both have a shoot fighting and catch wrestling background. They also found a stable in Evolve Wrestling called Catch Point, made up of all legit wrestlers. I did forget about that. Wasn't Drew Gulak in that stable, Mark? I don't remember. I thought they had a few guys in that stable. I could be wrong. Evander says, does WWE overlook Riddle's weed usage when it comes to the wellness program? I remember him talking about Triple H making a joke about it. I don't know it. Because certain states have legalized that now, so I don't know how that's viewed.
I was going to say the legalized, and two, he could actually have, I don't know what his medical background is, but he could actually have medical clearance to use it, and WWE can't fault him for that. But to comment on Mark's thing, like, I would be okay with them as a tag team if their vignettes and their promos and the stuff that they were doing didn't just come off as stale, boring, or just like very cheesy. Like it almost just comes off like as there's no chemistry. So I didn't know that they were together. To be honest,
I did. I just totally forgot about it.
I didn't really follow Evolve very heavily, but I would say that if they were working together, you would think there'd be a little bit more chemistry, and I feel like they've just met for the first time every time I watch their promo.
Evolve is really good though, guys. If you've not,
I enjoy the matches.
If you're not even before they've partnered with WWE, they put on some really good matches. I know that there was, I shared this with Cole and Austin is a buddy of ours. I shared this with them. There was an Orange Cassidy Velveteen Dream match when Velveteen Dream was the NXT North American champion. I felt like that was a good match. They put on really good matches, and it's in front of a smaller crowd. So Mark says Thatcher's an odd cat, and it takes time for his gimmick to blossom.
I'd assume so, because otherwise they wouldn't be big on him. They obviously have plans for him and see a future with him. It just, I don't know if pairing him with Riddle was the best way to get him over.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, I'm trying to be optimistic on it, and I was never really sold. I shouldn't say never. I wasn't sold on Matt Riddle in the first place. I warmed up to him, did a complete 180. I think he's awesome. Same thing with his partnering with Pete Dunne. Wasn't sold on it. They made it work. Did a 180 on that, so I'm trying to be optimistic on this pairing. All right, NXT Women's Title match: Io Shirai against Charlotte Flair. I was excited going into this match. I thought the match itself was still decent, but again, it still felt rushed. I don't think the commercial breaks helped the entire NXT card from top to bottom. I just thought there was too many of them, but I don't think WWE has any say-so in that. I'm sure they have to have the mandatory amount of commercial breaks and such, but the match itself I still think was pretty decent, but it never really felt like that NXT is really good at teasing during the matches that they might put the belt on the challenger. I didn't feel like there was any of that in this match, so I was kind of disappointed in that regard. I hated the ending to this. So they have a little schmoz outside the ring, and Flair grabs a kendo stick and gets DQ'd. I get why they did it, and Cole and I talked about this before we went on. They did it to have a not so clean ending so Rhea Ripley can come out, make her return. There's a schmoz with her. Go to commercial break, then we come back. Rhea Ripley has a little schmoz with Io Shirai, and it inevitably looks like they're setting up a triple threat match for what will be a triple threat match for the NXT Women's title.
My only thing with this match is that when I saw it, and don't get me wrong, I love Io, but when you put her right now in a match with Charlotte, I just didn't believe that it was believable for her to beat Charlotte. Like it just didn't come off as one of the women on the roster that I was like, oh yeah, she's gonna win, especially this early in Charlotte's run. Now, if this match was to happen a few months down the road from now, when Charlotte's kind of ran through the division a little bit, and then boom, met up with Io, I would have been like, okay, I might, especially if you build Io up a little bit more. Io's kind of been like that hot and cold. Like, she has a good feud, but she loses in that feud, and then she wins this ladder match, and then you have her lose to Charlotte. Like, I just feel like you're kind of hurting Io more in this. But I thought the match was decent as well. I thought that it showcased Io decently. I didn't really care for the ending as well. I would have at least liked it if Charlotte was going to retain the belt, let her win. Like if the storyline is really for her to run the gauntlet in NXT, let her win. Let it be such a good match that she wins, and there should be respect for the fact that Io killed it in that match. But don't have her hit her with a kendo stick. Like, it still plays in the storyline that she's there to beat up on the women's roster, so I kind of get it. But I would have rather have seen like that. I hate to say it because I'm a John Cena fan, but that John Cena mentality where he wanted to give respect to the younger talent, still beat them, but give respect where respect was due.
Yeah.
And I know she's kind of playing a heel role as well, but I would have rather have seen that. Like, let me run through you and then say, okay, I respect you now. And
you also kind of knew that Charlotte wasn't going to be dropping the belt, because even Morrow during the match, she's like, how terrible, or whatever word he used, how bad would it be if Charlotte drops the NXT title in her first defense? I'm just like, I don't know. I don't like when commentators drop those little, I don't want to say hints, but just those little blurbs or nuggets or whatever.
And make you think like, okay, well, yeah, you've sold me. She's not driving this.
Exactly.
I do like that Rhea's back. I don't know why. The only thing I hate is I would have kept her off TV a lot longer and have brought her back when it was time to really start thinking taking the belt off Charlotte, though. Her coming back just, to me, doesn't seem like it makes sense, because when she faces Charlotte, I don't see her winning again. I don't see Rhea beating Charlotte a month after she loses the belt and we start this kind of Charlotte on NXT again promo. She's not really faced anybody at NXT. Like, she hasn't really run the gauntlet yet. And I just think like it's a poor use of a storyline that could have been saved for 3-4 months down the line.
Agreed. And my thought process is, if you're going to put Rhea and Charlotte together in a match again, whether it's a one-on-one or if it's a triple threat match, you need to make sure that they put on a better match than they did at WrestleMania. I thought WrestleMania's match between Charlotte and Rhea was average. I could be in the minority on that. The point I'm getting at is NXT is very good about knowing when to stop a feud or stop a storyline. And most times that means you have a feud, they have the one match payoff, and then that's it, and they move on. You have Gargano and Adam Cole. You had their
best of three
match, best of three matches, but they did that because 5-star after 5-star after 5-star match.
Yeah.
They made it work. You did that with Gargano and Ciampa.
Yeah.
5-star after 5-star after 5-star match, because they can do that. The thing with NXT is they've been good about knowing when to pull the plug on a feud if their one match was mediocre. That's what I'm worried about if they continue this Rhea Ripley Charlotte Flair feud, is if they have another match or two, whether it's, again, just one-on-one or whether it's a triple threat or whatever, they need to have a better match than they did at WrestleMania. I was very disappointed in that. And again, I get it. There's no crowd. It's going to have a different feel. but it didn't feel like the chemistry was there during that match. I'm probably going to be in the minority, and that's okay. I've read stuff online on social media that people loved the match. I didn't. That's just my perspective.
I definitely thought it was in the middle of the pack of matches on the card, which probably is due to the fact that WrestleMania had a very long card. It had a lot of matches that I think I was looking forward to other matches than that one. It was decent. I do think that the match would be better on NXT, though, because there is a difference in style just between NXT and the main roster, too. And I felt like their match was sticking more true to the main roster type of wrestling and maybe not adding in the elements that makes NXT so great. And probably is what makes Rhea so great, because her matches on NXT have been way better. Even the TakeOver matches have been way better than what I saw in that WrestleMania match. So
right.
The only plus to it is that I think that they fight again, you're going to see more of a high energy match, even if there's no crowd. We might see a little bit more of the NXT style that we love in that match. And if Io is a part of that match, it just amps it up more because Io can add a little bit more of an aerial part of the match that maybe is also missing.
Right. And that's what I'm hopeful. That's why I'm hopeful that if they include Io Shirai in this feud, it'll kind of, like you said, amplify this feud. It'll amplify the match. Dusty says, I like Rhea's potential with her only being 23 and being someone that seems to try her hardest to be a sponge and learn from those that she wrestles, and she dedicates time to look back at various eras of wrestling to find an edge and an advantage for her own growth. Yeah, I agree. I mean, she's like Cole said, she's had better matches than she did at WrestleMania. Again, I don't know if it was just because they didn't have a crowd, if there wasn't that, that adrenaline rush that talent gets from performing in front of a crowd. If it was just kind of, I don't want to say phoning it in, but if you're Rhea Ripley and if you're going into a match where there's no crowd and you're dropping a title, there might be a tendency to,
especially being that young with no real experience as far as having that kind of a big match. I will say this: for as young as she is, she carries herself very well.
Definitely,
I would definitely give her credit where credit's due. She carries herself in a way that she's been doing this forever. I definitely think there's plenty of room for growth, just like there is for many wrestlers. But I will give her credit that for the fact that she's 23, you might forget that about her because she is definitely carrying herself in a way that she's been doing this as long as some of the other women on the roster who are a little bit more experienced. So,
right. All right. Let's we have to speed this up just a little bit. It's already 10 o'clock. All right. So we've got another match for the interim NXT Cruiserweight title. This was a pretty quick match. Kushida got the win. Did a promo at the end of the match. Again, I felt that Tozawa and Kushida's promos at the end of the matches they felt kind of awkward. I think they could have cut those out for time because between those two interviews, that accounted for probably 5 or 6 minutes. 5 or 6 minutes on a 2-hour show when you have commercials can make a world of difference.
Not to mention it was a pretty bad promo at the end. Like,
if it was awkward,
he can't speak. And I'm not dissing on these guys who can't really cut because of their
the language barrier.
The language barrier. I'm not dissing on them, but just let his win be a win. Like, you don't have to interview every single person. Let his win be a win. Let his actions in the ring speak for themselves. I don't dislike Kushida. This has actually been the most I've been interested in him since he's joined because I felt like a lot of his matches haven't been that good. I am in the minority on that, but I don't care. I'm glad he's in this. I hope he wins I think, like I said, he's my pick to win the whole tournament because I think this is the thing that could help him get a little bit more recognition and get over.
Yep.
But this match didn't have to happen this week. I'm just being serious, like being real. Like, you could have pushed this tournament out just a week longer if it meant that they didn't do this match with how good this card was. They could have held that match off for another time.
Or they could have cut segments out of the.
This match was pointless. And Atlas is new. Like, I get they're just trying to kind of get him going, but this match didn't have to happen on this card. It was very quick, very boring. To me, the worst match. The ratings on the matches are different than mine. This was the worst match of the night, in my opinion.
Which is really weird because then the next segment was my favorite part of NXT. the Finn Balor promo, this had a mix of, this was like a scripted shoot, and I loved it. So basically, he goes on to say that he thinks that the worst or the biggest snakes in the company were those in the office, but he's not so sure now. He says that Wrestling Playbook 101 is basically to attack the guy that's prominent so you can get the push, with the lights and the smoke and the music and lasers and things like that. And he goes on to say that he's a patient guy, but whoever attacked him, he says the push that you're expecting won't be a push, it'll be a squash. And I like the fact that they're using what I would call mark wrestling terms. And he's also referring to him being displeased with his place in the company from a few years ago. He was being pushed, and then he basically was fed to The Fiend at SummerSlam whenever The Fiend made his debut. And then he was kind of just, left out to dry until he came to NXT. So I thought the promo was awesome. I think it sets up nicely for whoever is this person that attacked him. I can't put my finger on who the attacker might be. I don't know if it's going to be someone that debuts, if it's somebody that's already within NXT, if they're going to bring a talent from Raw or SmackDown. I'm interested to see how this progresses, who they use, because I can't really put my finger on anybody that it would make sense for it to be. But I thought the promo was good. I enjoyed the promo. It was my favorite part of the NXT card. Now, we would see Finn Balor again in what I thought was a relatively pointless match and segment combination. Cameron Grimes comes out for what would be a squash match, but what is really ironic about this match is that this Denzel Dejournette guy, he got more moves in offensively than Cameron Grimes did. So he this Denzel guy catches him in a couple of belly to belly suplexes, or like Northern Lights type suplexes. But then Grimes gets him in this double stomp and then gets the pin. It felt awkward because he got the stomp on him, and then there was a pause, and then he pins him. It's just like, why was there that awkward pause?
Right.
Anyway, Cameron Grimes cuts a promo. He says if Finn Balor were out here, he would, slap him in the face. It's too bad that, he's not the attacker, because if he was, he would, confront Balor to his face. Balor comes out, gets the attack on him. Then Balor also says the best way to kill a snake is to chop its head off.
Sets up for our match next week as well.
Probably, but you could have
announced. It's announced for next week.
You could have had a Balor Grimes match without this, and it would have been fine. I mean, because this isn't going to be Balor's long-term feud. It's going to be with whoever this attacker is. So
I definitely think it sets up for the attacker to make itself known next week.
Possibly.
But it was definitely a good promo from Finn, which is not surprising. He's great on the mic. I like Cameron Grimes, and I think their match is going to be really good. And I thought the tag, like kind of tying Finn Balor's promo to the little promo shot after the match, was great. It was decent story writing for once.
Alan says, great show so far. I appreciate it. Lynn says, Kona Reeves maybe for an interesting push, having him attack Finn. I'm not sold on Kona Reeves.
I think it's someone more prominent than that.
And I hope William is wrong, but I'm not going to lie when I say that I didn't think this. But William says Lars Sullivan would be good as an attacker. I hope that...
You think they would call him down? I'm thinking Killian Dane. Killian Dane kind of struck me as an interesting one. And not to mention Johnny Gargano with the whole wanting to tear down NXT and rebuild it. Kind of gimmick. I thought about why wouldn't you go for the top guy then and start from there? Like, you already beat Ciampa. Like, I don't know. So there's a few other names that are out there. Damian Priest could be one. So there are other names I think that intrigue me more than Lars Sullivan.
Anybody intrigues me more than Lars Sullivan, even Kona Reeves. I just hope Lars Sullivan's done. I mean, I never been impressed with him, and anyway. All right, so we have the NXT title match, Velveteen Dream against Adam Cole. Again, we mentioned earlier that there's an ongoing but hushed controversy with Velveteen Dream, and I said on Monday's show if they put the belt on him, then WWE has got some explaining to do.
Yeah.
The match was okay. I'll backtrack on what I said earlier. I felt like everything but the first match and the last match felt rushed. This even felt a little bit rushed, but I don't think that's the fault of NXT necessarily or WWE. I think, again, the commercial breaks is why it felt rushed, because I feel like the commercial breaks, as you go further into a wrestling program, whether it's AEW, NXT, Raw, SmackDown, I feel like the commercial breaks get longer as you progress into a show, and that might be for reasons of, their ratings are better towards the end of a show. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of advertising and things like that, but it just seems like the commercial breaks last closer to 5-6 minutes, and then the ones early in the show maybe last closer to 3 or 4. I don't know. Anyway, it was a good back and forth match. You've got Bobby Fish and Roderick Strong that come out, but then Dexter Lumis crawls out from under the ring to stop them. Then Velveteen Dream takes a jump over the rope to, does a tope on them or whatever. And then he gets thrown into the referee. It's just a classic schmoz to get the referee down. Before that, Velveteen Dream had hit the Rainmaker elbow. Looked like he was going to Purple Rainmaker. I'm sorry, to get to tease the 3 count. Referee's down. And then Velveteen Dream goes to get the referee, gets caught with a super kick, and then the last shot from Adam Cole. Adam Cole gets the pin, and that's pretty much NXT. They go off the air with Undisputed Era, sans Kyle O'Reilly celebrating the win. So I thought it was a pretty good NXT from top to bottom. I think the commercial breaks hindered them to some degree. I think that they probably should have cut out, maybe the Cameron Grimes match and the preceding segment with Finn Balor. If that was only to set up a match with Cameron Grimes and Finn Balor next week, I think they could have just announced the match and been okay with it. Kind of like they did the Gargano and Dijakovic match. There was no build to it. They just did it. So that being said,
I will say that the Dream match, I think, could have been better with the crowd. I think that Dream, I'm not taking anything away from him. I think that his matches are better when there's a crowd behind him, kind of cheering and chanting and making some things a little bit more interesting. I am interested with this Dexter Lumis, Velveteen Dream kind of like team up in a sense. Like Dexter Lumis keeps coming to Velveteen's aid. So I'm wondering if there's a storyline that's coming out with that as well. And I think this was a safe way to keep the belt on Cole for now during the pandemic, because that's the best move right now, I think, to do is to just leave it as is. And you'll probably see them have a better match kind of down the line at some point between him and Dream. Maybe when all this controversy stuff is over. Like I said, that's gone pretty quiet since it came out as well. So maybe it's going to go away here.
Yeah. Let's we'll recap AEW. We're going to go through this one a little more quickly for time's sake. There won't be as much to cover because AEW didn't have 10 different matches and segments on here or on their program. They open with a video package recapping the TNT title tournament. They remind everybody once they hit the air that they are live this week. We have Jim Ross returning, Tony Schiavone, Excalibur's back. So we're back on track to some semblance of normalcy within wrestling, having live programming. I wouldn't be surprised if WWE and NXT follow suit shortly for doing it every week, because I know the initial plan was WWE was going to have some live, some taped. They were going to kind of alternate. I wouldn't be surprised if they just go 100% live shortly. So we have Cody and Joey Janela to kick off the show. Won't go into too much detail, but I thought this was Joey Janela's best match in AEW to date. It didn't involve he has somewhat of a more hardcore style at times. It didn't involve any of that. I think it's really showcased Joey Janela's skills. I'm not a Joey Janela type guy. I've up until this match, I was not very keen on his in-ring ability, but I was, this impressed me to some degree. I did think it helped in part that he was working with Cody, but you knew Cody was going to get the win because they're not going to have him or Lance Archer lose at this point because they're building them towards this TNT title tournament.
It was a good, clean match. Like, I thought it just had...
That's a good way to phrase it.
It was just to the point, very, very good. I am not a Joey Janela fan either. I don't dislike him. I think he falls into the category of, like, just cool for me. Like, okay. Like I don't really hate or...
He's another talent. But
I don't like have it, like, I'm just indifferent on him. I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, I don't really care for him. I'm not like a big advocate or against him. But the match itself was clean. He's a name, I guess, that on paper against Cody incites interest for fans. But I just thought it was a good, clean match. It had a lot of aspects to it. And I did enjoy it. I'm not going to lie. Like, I thought it was good. It didn't hurt Joey to take
not
the
at
L.
all. Not at all.
Because it was good, but it puts Cody over and gets him a win going forward. So,
and it just, I thought it was good that NXT and AEW both had solid openers. I felt like AEW's was more solid because it didn't feel rushed. I mean, they had a good 20-minute match. So next up we have Nyla Rose against a newcomer in Kenzie Page. I don't know if she's going to be with AEW permanently, but they mentioned that she's only 18 years of age. No surprise, Nyla Rose gets the squash win. But pre-match, they really build the women's division in trying to tease who's going to be next to challenge for the women's title, whether it be Britt Baker, Hikaru Shida, Chris Statlander.
Penelope Ford.
I
thought that was interesting.
So we'll see what happens there. MJF, we have a promo from him. Again, all of his promos are gold. I think when it comes to a combination of pre-recorded vignettes or live on the mic, I think MJF is probably in my top 3 in wrestling right now. I think he is beyond his years as far as experience goes. I think it just shows that he is on the rise. I mean, I would say give it 3 years and they'll put the AEW title on him,
if not sooner.
Yeah, 3 years max. Let's see. I'm going to read some comments. Justin says, love Joey Janela. He can work or be hilarious. Yeah, I know that he's fun. He's a funny guy. He was in the Being the Elite series. They've shown his comedy skills. Joey Janela versus Orange Cassidy from GCW is comedy gold. I'll need to go back and watch that. Because that definitely sounds like a funny match. Then we get lost my spot.
Moxley versus Frankie Kazarian.
Yeah, we get a few promos that I felt were unnecessary. We get a pre-tape vignette from Shawn Spears, setting up that he might have a feud with Cody. It seems like Cody has like multiple feuds going on at one time.
Everybody wants him. I don't know. And maybe that has something to do with the fact that they give so many people creative kind of control or creative input.
Maybe.
And everybody's like, yeah, I want to feud with you, so I'm going to cut this promo. And then, like, Cody's like, yeah, cool. And, like,
I don't know.
Maybe it's setting up for the fact that Cody might win the belt and his first challenger will be Shawn Spears. I mean, Shawn's been getting a lot of TV time and whatnot as well. So,
and then we get a quick interview with Shivani, MJF, and Shawn Spears.
To set up the MJF Jungle Boy match at Double or Nothing, which is I think that'll be a really, really good match.
What's the funniest part about this promo is Shawn Spears' face, where he's just like.
Actually, what was really funny to me is when MJF is like, "Not you, buddy." Like he was talking about all the bad wrestling that's been happening since he was off TV, and Shawn kind of gives him a look. He's like, "Not you, buddy." Then when Shawn looks away, he went like this guy's terrible still. And then when he announces the Jungle Boy match and MJF spits his drink out everywhere, he's like, "I didn't sign off of that." And Shawn Spears, you're right, his mouth is just dropped and just kind of.
I like that they inject comedy into it. I mean, I feel like AEW is better at comedy than NXT/WWE. NXT doesn't really have comedy, but I'd equate it to Raw and SmackDown, I guess. AEW is, I feel like, light years ahead of what Raw and SmackDown is, just in my opinion. I mean, Raw and SmackDown do some funny things, but AEW, I feel like, is just on a different level when it comes to that kind of thing.
It's balanced. It's definitely balanced, and that's good.
Justin, I appreciate that. I'll check out that PM later. Then we have Kazarian against Jon Moxley. This is a non-title match. Again, I thought this was a good match. It really showcased that. It showcased Kazarian's ability showed his singles match ability, which I followed Kazarian since he was in what was TNA at the time. I think he was still there when it became Impact. He was with Ring of Honor, and so I've known he's a good wrestler, but I also know he's aged, so yeah. I mean, he doesn't move in the ring like he used to, but he can still put on a good match, and this showed it. I'm not saying this was a 5-star match by any means, but it was a good, solid, middle of the card match with the AEW champion. Jon Moxley and Kazarian, I felt worked pretty good together. There were a couple spots that maybe felt a little awkward, but aside from that, I mean, it was a good match. It was like a 15-minute match, I think, give or take. You expected Moxley to get the win because even though it's a non-title match, they mentioned during the match, if Kazarian wins, you got to throw him into the title picture. Well, they're not going to throw Kazarian into the title picture, so you kind of knew Moxley was going to get the win. The closing segment to this match I thought was very well done. Basically, Kazarian attempts I'm trying to think of the sequence of this. So he attempts a moonsault, but then there was like a counter and then another counter, and then Moxley catches them into a DDT position. He knew the paradigm shift was coming, and Moxley gets the win. But this sets up the Dark Order attack, Brody Lee coming out. Like we mentioned earlier, Brody Lee challenged for the AEW title, and then we're going to get this match at AEW Double or Nothing. I thought it was a good segment. I thought it was a good match. It proved once again, like we said earlier, Brody Lee is good on the mic. WWE didn't give him that opportunity, and shame on them for it. They totally lost out on his mic skills.
This is one of those matches that I kind of wish we would have got Kazarian 10 years ago. Because Kazarian has a lot of moves back in TNA days that he just can't do now. And it's a bummer that some of these guys missed out in their prime, and I know they're not mad about it because they have advanced wrestling in ways that they'll never know, or really get credit for maybe. But Kazarian was one of those guys in the X division that helped put the X division where it was, and right. I kind of wish we would have got the Kazarian would have had this kind of match earlier in his career, because I felt like him and Moxley could have put on a 5-star match had Kazarian been able to do a little bit of what he could have done, 5-10 years ago. It was a really good match. I enjoyed it because I've been a Kazarian fan. I like Jon Moxley, so I thought it was a good match. And I think he was the perfect opponent to set up this Dark Order thing because of the fact that SCU's had their issues with the Dark Order as well, because you saw Christopher Daniels and Scorpio Sky try to come out as well and help fight off the gang mentality of the Dark Order. But yeah, like you said, great promo from Brody Lee. I like this Dark Order gimmick that he's running. I like the whole I'm a leader. I'm not like how I was last time that you saw me. I'm a leader, and I'm better than what I'm given credit for, and I'm going to prove that. I think their match at Double or Nothing is going to shock people. I think it's going to be probably one of the top 2 matches of the night. And I think it's going to really shock people, not only what Jon Moxley can do, because I still don't think we've seen a really, really good Jon Moxley match without it having weapons and no disqualifications involved.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've seen that Jon Moxley match that just blew us away where it was just a regular match in AEW.
Right.
But I think you're going to see a really, really good Jon Moxley match, but I also think you're going to see the best match you've ever seen from Brody Lee. And I'm just being real on that. I think this is going to be, I hope I'm not setting it up for failure, but I really think that it's going to be one of the best matches that both of those two have put on in probably a really long time.
Kind of between Money in the Bank this Sunday and then this Double or Nothing at the end of the month, I'm really excited for the month of May as far as wrestling goes.
Yeah.
Even if we're still a month or two away from having live crowds, I think, and I'm hopeful that WWE and AEW both will put on good pay-per-views this month. So
they're both looking pretty good.
Agreed. So Brandy Rhodes has a pre-taped vignette on Jake Roberts and Lance Archer about the end of the match with Dustin Rhodes last week. It basically sets up for what would happen later, actually just a short time later, basically telling Jake Roberts, keep her name out of his mouth from now on. Don't talk about her. Don't talk about her family. We have a match with QT Marshall of the Nightmare family against Lance Archer. Brandy Rhodes accompanies QT Marshall. Jake Roberts comes out with Lance Archer, which I was pleasantly surprised to see. No surprise, Lance Archer gets the win. Again, you're not going to have Cody or Lance Archer lose going into their match at Double or Nothing.
Not to QT Marshall.
Right. What was interesting is that during the match, there was this interaction between Britt Baker and Brandy Rhodes.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, it was something different, something, I'll use the word refreshing. It sets up for something new. Maybe Brandy wrestles. Who knows? I don't think Brandy doesn't wrestle after this against Britt Baker, or they don't have some kind of
altercation or storyline. Here's the thing: during this time, Brandy should be wrestling. During this pandemic time where they're only allowed to have so many people there, she's already there.
Right.
She has enough wrestling experience. I know she's not the greatest in the ring.
She's not the worst though either.
But she has enough experience to have a okay match, an average match to make the card interesting. And when you feud with someone like Britt Baker, who can put on a good match, I think that's great. I thought the way that they incorporated that kind of into how she gets put in the ring with Lance Archer and Jake the Snake, it was a great way to do it as well, because it was creative. It wasn't just like Lance went after Brandy or anything. I also want to say this. I don't know if you saw on Instagram, I believe, but Zelina Vega had posted a post that kind of talked about her putting women managers on the map again and kind of making them a thing. I kind of wonder if that Brandy promo, in a sense, was kind of a shot back at that without it being a shot back, because it was a decent promo and it was kind of making sure that people knew, hey, I'm the manager, kind of doing like a manager feud with Jake. And I thought that was a very interesting.
I didn't think about that,
because Brandy hasn't really done those kind of promos for the Nightmares.
Right.
Like she hasn't really been outspoken. She's just been kind of coming to the ring. And so I thought it was a really, really good promo for her, and the incorporation versus her versus Jake in like a manager role I thought was really interesting as well.
Just to clarify, so during the match, Britt Baker hits QT Marshall with her shoe. Brandy grabs Britt's shoe and throws it into the empty seats, a good, I would say, 20, 30 rows deep. But then after the match, Britt Baker catches Brandy in what looked like a really stiff DDT on the floor. I'm sure Brandy's fine because we haven't heard anything that she got injured or anything. I mean, it was a very well done move. But I found it interesting that she used a DDT, Jake Roberts' move. Foreshadowing, perhaps. Who knows? Anyway, but then they roll Brandy in the ring. Jake Roberts then comes in. He brings the snake in and then puts it on top of Brandy. Now, they make mention of the fact that Cody isn't able to come to the ring because at Daily's Place, that the showers and the locker rooms are a good ways away from where the ring is. So they kind of make light of, from a storyline standpoint, why he can't come out because of a real thing. So I found that to be interesting. And then
I will say that was a pretty dormant snake. Like, that snake just kind of like
it just kind of chilled out.
What's funny is that you kept seeing Jake kind of reposition the snake on her because he could not get the snake to stay in a way that was like, looked like it could bite at any second. It just kind of like it was uninterested in Brandy in a sense.
Yeah.
But it was really good. I enjoyed that part. It definitely had me on the edge of my seat. Like, oh snap, what's gonna happen?
Well, I mean, I kind of knew that the snake wasn't going to bite her, but it's just the fact that it's akin to back in the 80s and 90s where Jake Roberts would put the snake on his unconscious opponent. So it was a very nice ode, I'll say, to old school wrestling. We have not a match, sorry. We have an interview with Taz and Darby Allin. I kind of I'll be honest, I didn't really watch this part in detail.
It wasn't anything. It was really Taz asked one question.
Yeah, I mean,
he didn't answer. He was like, I can give you some advice from a professional to a professional, and then Darby just like blew him off. So it was kind of unnecessary almost.
And then we have the match to close out the card. And Cole and I were talking about this before we went on. So I watched it on Sling TV. Cole watches it on Hulu. Cole said that it cut off the program not too long after the entrance. I was able to watch the whole thing. By the way, it's Jericho and Guevara against Matt Hardy and Kenny Omega in a street fight. I was able to see the whole thing. You guys that are still watching, let us know if you had any issues watching it live. It was fine on my end, but Cole said Hulu cut him off.
And I recorded on Hulu because I don't get to watch it live on most Wednesdays, so I usually record NXT and AEW. My recording here recently during the pandemic has been around the hour and 30, hour and 40 mark. So I didn't think anything of it. And then when it got about 5 minutes left in the recording, I was like, there's no way they're doing a street fight in 5 minutes. Did I misread the card? Is that a match for next week? And then I saw Guevara and Chris Jericho come out, and the recording cuts as Moxley's coming out. And then I went to YouTube, so I thought this was interesting. The way that they labeled it on YouTube was see the conclusion of the street fight. They might have had some live airing issues on some of the broadcasting formats that they might have been on. I'm not sure. I haven't read anything on that, but they normally don't put it that way on their YouTube recaps. They usually just say, lay sex gods versus Matt Hardy and
that's such a
Kenny Omega,
name.
Whatever. And I cracked up at the end of the match when she said, and here are your winners, lay sex gods. I just thought that was hilarious because they didn't call them Inner Circle.
I know. It's like they have 5 different
even though
monikers.
The match was pretty much Inner Circle versus them. But I had to go and watch the YouTube recap of the end of the match, so I actually didn't get to see the match in its entirety. I had to watch it in piece by pieces of YouTube clips that I could find of it, which was pretty depressing because I literally was looking forward to that match of all matches all night long because I've been waiting for the Matt Hardy debut as far as a match goes.
And they pulled his debut out with flying colors. I mean, this was fantastic. Great. Again, like we said, he comes out as broken Matt Hardy, but then mid-match he switches attire and has more of a Hardy Boys type attire. Then he gets thrown into an ice container, or those ice containers that you find at the grocery store. Comes back out as dressed in his Damascus attire. I'm just like, this is
I
perfect.
died when he said, you need to document what is about to happen.
Yeah.
And turning on the car and honking the horn and all this stuff. He is one of the most creative things that happened to wrestling in a long time. And it is, if you are not a fan, I want to know why. It was entertaining to watch.
Well, some people just don't get that type of humor, which I understand, but it's at the same
not just
time,
humor. It had so much. That match would not have been what it was without that, though.
Agreed. I mean, you've got Kenny jokingly looking like a psycho with his has a psycho look on his face when they're in the golf cart trying to hit Guevara and Jericho with it multiple times. It's just
I will say the time that they hit Guevara with that golf cart,
that looked
Guevara
nasty.
threw himself into that pole of the holding up the roof or whatever of the I mean, he like it hit him, and then he smacked his head on purpose on that pole. And I was like, "You, my man, this just made me respect Sammy even more." Because I was like, man, you sold that thing.
He's good at taking
like
bumps
a
and selling.
boss. Like Chris Jericho, he got clipped or whatever. And
I know that was
okay,
like,
old Jericho. Like I see you can't.
It's
take
like
the
a
bump, man.
It's like Guevara's like, all right, well, I got to make up for that puny bump, and
I'm
so
not
I'll just
mad that Jericho didn't take it because he's a little bit old. Like it might be hard for him to do that. Like versus how he could have used to maybe, but Guevara like jumped into it. He got hit and then smacked his head on purpose with it. And I was just like, that was awesome.
Agreed. So inevitably, Jericho and Guevara get the win because this literally turned into a 5-on-2 match. We forgot to mention Hager made his presence known earlier in the match, and then Santana and Ortiz come out as well. Jericho hits the Judas Effect on Omega for the 3 count. That pretty much ends AEW, which I felt like all around AEW beat NXT as far as just the quality of the program from top to bottom. I don't feel like the commercial breaks hurt AEW as much. And I don't know the ins and outs of advertising, but the commercial breaks with AEW didn't seem like they were as long. And they took them at more opportune times, I guess I'll call it.
Justin said that his cut off at the entrances too, because he DirecTV DVRs. I wonder if the recordings just cut off. And maybe they went into the next times block on TV.
I don't know
to make that happen, but
let's see. Ken says TSN2 in Canada.
Cone,
was good. The Conehead Jericho that was good.
Funny too. Conehead Jericho.
Thomas says, I think a younger Jericho takes that bump. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes, like I said, I'm not trying to diss him. Like I was mad about it. I was just like, it was clearly apparent that he was not ready to get smacked with a golf cart. Because one of the announcers, I think, even said like, I think he got out of the way. And then the other one was like, no, I think he got clipped by it. And I was like, you guys are trying, but it was really clear that he just couldn't take the bump.
Agreed. All right. I wanted to
promotional consideration paid for by the following.
I wanted to let you guys know that you can check out the Going Broadway podcast live every week on Monday and Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central Time. If you're not able to watch us live, all of our shows are archived, and you can go back and watch all of them on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. Those links are below our pictures in your video that you're seeing now. Our YouTube link is there, goingbroadwaypodcast.com/YouTube. Our Facebook link is right over there, facebook.com/goingbroadwaypodcast. We also have a Twitter and Instagram that you can follow. We are at goingbrdwipod on Twitter. That is also our Instagram name, handle, whatever you want to call it, goingbrdwipod. Please like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms. That will enter you into our future giveaways, which I will talk about more in just a second. Please also download our app. It's called Yo Radio. It can be downloaded via the App Store or Google Play. It is the most advanced and user-driven streaming service platform on the market today. Everything you'd expect and more from radio, podcasting, including our show via the Lineup channel, sports, news, and more, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's always 100% free. Again, that's Yo Radio, available via the App Store, Google Play, or by visiting yoradio.com. As far as our show goes, you can also check us out at our web host at lineupmedia.fm. So, guys, I mentioned on our Facebook page that if we're able to hit 2,500 likes before June 1st, so that's about 3 weeks away. If we're able to hit 2,500 likes before June 1st, on or before June 1st, I'll call it. Not only will we do another belt giveaway at 3,000 likes, but we'll do one at 2,500 as well. But that's where we need your guys' help. So share our Facebook page with your friends. Share it in the groups that you're in. Mention the fact that, guys, if you like this podcast's page, you can win a free belt. And they're not toys. Again, you guys have seen that have been with us for a while. They are real belts, not toys. They're real zinc plates. They're real leather, like the legit ones they use on TV. So share our page with your friends. Share it in your groups. Ask them to like our page. By the way, guys, make sure that you reiterate that they like the page, not just follow it. Our figures are based on how many like the page, not just follow it, because we're considered a business Facebook page, so you can either like or follow it. Our numbers are based on likes, not just follows. Sorry if that's confusing. Our Twitter page, you can follow that as well. We're going to do another t-shirt giveaway once we hit 500 follows on Twitter. I think we're at like 460, 470, something like that. And then as far as our YouTube and Instagram pages, we'll do some future giveaways once we hit certain numbers on those also. I posted information about that a week or two ago. As far as once we hit certain numbers, we'll do t-shirt giveaways as far as those go as well. Sean says, best podcast. I appreciate it. Sean, yeah, I appreciate you sharing. Lynn says the belts are legit and very nice indeed. Definitely. Absolutely. Yeah, share our Facebook page in particular. We'll do a belt giveaway again at 2,500 if we can get there before June 1st. And Mark beat me to it. I was actually going to shout out my friends at Beltomania once again. This Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Also Tuesdays at 7:15 p.m. Eastern, I believe. Mark, if I'm getting that day wrong or time wrong, let me know. Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Tuesdays at 7:15 p.m. Eastern. This Saturday, they basically are rebooking the 80s from a storyline standpoint. It's a very interesting and intriguing topic. I enjoy watching and listening to them. And on Tuesdays, they kind of just go into a friendly discussion about different topics. I know they have different merch that they sell. Again, they have a pro wrestling tee shop. You can go to prowrestlingtees.com and look up Beltomania. You could also go to getyourbam.com as well. So check them out, friends of the show. All right, let's do our predictions for Money in the Bank. We're going to have to kind of breeze through this for time because we've got about 15 minutes that we need to wrap up this show in. So far, there's only 6 confirmed matches, so let's just look at these one by one, at least the confirmed matches. So we've got 4-way tag title match, 4-way SmackDown tag title match with New Day, Miz and Morrison, Forgotten Sons, and Lucha House Party. I told Cole before we went on, this is a little harder to predict, at least for most of these matches, than, for example, the WrestleMania card that we just had. Short and sweet, I think the New Day keeps the belts. Because, I mean, they literally just put the belt on them. I think it's too soon to take them off. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. But again, I could be wrong. This card is harder to predict than some in the past. Your thoughts?
For me to give my prediction, I have to make mention to the fact that the hacker gimmick posted a video, and there was a date, which was the Money in the Bank date that was revealed in there. There was also the coordinates of the Performance Center that were put on there and said, are you paying attention now? Are you listening now? Whatever it was. People still think it's CM Punk because they're using that. I just don't think it's him.
It's a troll job.
Now, I will say this. I feel like the hacker gimmick is coming off as a face. I'm not getting heel vibes from the hacker gimmick just for the fact that it revealed Sonya and Mandy as the bad guys in that story. So I kind of feel like the hacker gimmick's like this Bring Justice kind of character or whatever. With that being said, they also teased that a tag team was going to have some dirt revealed, which is why I'm going to say that the New Day are going to retain, but I think you're going to see the hacker reveal himself during this, reveal the info that he has, and I think it's going to be about the Miz and Morrison, and I think you're going to see the Miz and Morrison split.
Potentially. I wouldn't be surprised if it's something to do with the New Day, and maybe it is Xavier Woods. At this point, I don't know who the hacker is. I hope it's not Ali because I wouldn't understand why they'd put Ali in this character. Again, we've talked about it on previous shows. I read Chad
Gable too. And
Same thing. Like, I don't understand why they would do that.
I don't understand. I'm okay with Ali just because I like him, and if it means he's going to get prominent booking out of it, cool. But ultimately, I think it's a face. I think it's something that's going to have more of a face kind of vibe to it. It could create controversy in the New Day. It would be interesting if they went that route. But I say the Miz and Morrison because the Miz has lost them the belts.
Yeah.
And then that he lost in the match against Lucia House Party on SmackDown. We might get another hint of that on SmackDown this week if they have a match and The Miz loses it. It would be a reason why John Morrison might be talking about him behind his back, and we see some videos of that, or The Miz talking about him behind his back. But ultimately, I kind of think that that's where the hacker is going to reveal himself.
Lynn says he thinks Miz and Morrison. Dusty Punk says, in all caps, CM Punk. Again, I don't think...
As great as that sounds, because I would love...
CM Punk would not be put into a storyline involving tag teams. That's the first red flag right there.
Yeah, you don't put him in a hacker gimmick, period. CM Punk is the kind of guy that you literally just bring back if you're going to bring him back in a shock, like the Edge return. Like, just let him come back. Like, how crazy would it be is if you were going to bring CM Punk back at Money in the Bank, you have him come out at the end of one of the championship matches. You have him come out like, you know, I don't want to see a Brock Lesnar repeat where, you know, he comes out in the middle of the match because someone got hurt and win the case. But I'm saying you have him come out in a shock value portion. You don't have him do this gimmick where he's a hacker. He doesn't need that build. He doesn't need that kind of surprise. He needs to just be brought back in a shock gimmick, in a shocking way. This gimmick is something to get somebody over who's not been getting over that they believe in.
Right.
Which is why I think it's Ali, even though it might feel lackluster. I don't see anybody else on the roster that just intrigues me the way that Ali does for that.
All right, so let's take a look at... Let's just look at Bayley and Tamina next. WWE SmackDown Women's title. I agree with Cole. We talked a little bit before the show about this match in particular. Share with them your thoughts on what might happen, because I completely agree with Cole on not just the match result, but how they would book this.
This is where I think the big swerve's going to come. Tamina's going to lose this match. Bayley's going to retain because Sasha's going to help her win, and then Sasha's going to turn on Bayley. We know that this is coming. We've seen it being kind of teased. One, it was teased years ago. They've been keeping this friendship going. It was teased at Mania. Didn't happen. Then it was kind of teased when Tamina had to fight Sasha to get her number one contender spot. And now I think you're going to see that you've seen the friendship on the rocks. Even Bayley got super kicked by Tamina on last week's SmackDown. And Sasha was kind of there for Bayley, but you could tell just wasn't like, oh my God, Bayley, are you okay? It was just more kind of looking at Tamina. Remember that there's a relationship from the past of Tamina and Sasha. So one way or another, I think that Bayley retains this title, but it's so that Sasha can then be her next competitor and they can feud. They are capable of having a very entertaining feud without a crowd. So I think this is the perfect time to pull the trigger on that. There was a rumored poster that's out there that for the future pay-per-view that could be coming up in the next few months, where Sasha's holding the belt and there's a triple threat. It's Clash of Champions or
Survivor Series. It was Sasha and Becky
and who was
Dakota Kai.
Dakota Kai as the NXT Women's Champion, which was also interesting. If that's true, I don't know if it is or not, but it definitely intrigued me.
Justin, I appreciate you hanging out. Enjoy your weekend too, buddy.
If that is true, it intrigues me a lot, and I think you got to build Sasha before that match happens. And I think this is the perfect time to pull the trigger on that friendship ending. And so, yeah, I think Tamina loses this match in a unclean way. I think Sasha interferes. Tamina loses, and then you're going to see Sasha turn on Bayley.
All right, let's take the next two and kind of quickly predict these. Drew McIntyre against Seth Rollins for the WWE title.
That's easy.
McIntyre, I think, keeps it. Strowman and Bray Wyatt for the Universal title. This one's a little harder, but I still think it's going to stay on Strowman because it's not The Fiend. It's Bray Wyatt. From my understanding, it's Strowman against Bray Wyatt. I think the title stays on Strowman. I'm just predicting who the title stays on, not necessarily who wins the match. I mean, it could be a Wyatt win or a Rollins win via countout or DQ, but ultimately, I think both titles stay on. I don't think inevitably, at least with the title matches that have been confirmed and booked, I don't think we have any title changes.
So I'll say this. One, I think the Drew McIntyre Seth Rollins match will be one of the best matches of the night because they're both great. I don't think that the title changes, though. I think it stays on Drew. The Braun Strowman Bray Wyatt one intrigues me because it's Bray Wyatt. I think it would make sense for Braun to retain it because I think there's a longer storyline here than just the 1 month promo and one and done in it.
I think there's gonna lead to a Strowman Fiend match.
That the other thing, and I would hate this booking, but it's WWE, so you have to take into the fact that there is a possibility that in this match, Braun Strowman fights Bray Wyatt. It is a very unconvincing match from Bray Wyatt's end because we saw how it was when he fought, what was it, The Miz, when he was Bray Wyatt.
Yep.
It was a very unconvincing match on Bray Wyatt's end, like he kind of lost a step or whatever. I think the Fiend, after Bray Wyatt gets the pin, or after Braun gets the pin on Bray Wyatt, will show its face and attack Braun, and then you could see a cash in. I would hate to see the Money in the Bank cashed in the same night. I don't like that booking, but it is a possibility that if they don't want the belt on Braun and a SmackDown or even a Raw guy wins it, they could have him come out after the Fiend attacks Braun and take the belt off him and still continue a Braun Fiend storyline. Like I said, don't like the booking, but it could happen. So that is a realistic thing. But I do think that Braun gets the win over Bray, and I don't think that storyline's done.
Then we'll do the Money in the Bank women's title match. We've got Asuka, Baszler, Nia Jax, Dana Brooke, Lacey Evans, Carmella. Without going into specifics, I think it's going to be Shayna Baszler. I think they just built up Baszler too much that if they put it on if they have anybody else win this women's Money in the Bank ladder match, it'll be a surprise, in my opinion. Now, granted, we got to remember that this and the men's Money in the Bank ladder matches, they're going to be going on at the same time. So I don't know if, from a storyline standpoint, if that's going to influence anything. But inevitably, my take on it, Shayna Baszler wins this. If it goes to anybody else, even Nia Jax, even Asuka, I think it would be a surprise. I think it'd be an even bigger surprise if Lacey Evans or Dana Brooke or Carmella wins. That's just me.
I do like how you brought up that this is a different Money in the Bank match than we've ever seen. So it's not like it's just an easy prediction. I also have shared with you that the history of the Money in the Bank is to typically give it to somebody who otherwise would never have that opportunity to be champion. And it's a shot to try to put that person over. So with all that being said, on this one, I'm going to trust my gut. I also read something. I don't remember it, and I didn't go back to rewatch it. But apparently on Raw, the announcers made a little boo-boo and kind of teased the fact that Becky Lynch will be on Raw after Money in the Bank to confront the Money in the Bank winner.
Right.
If that was true, or even if they hinted in a way that that's pretty much what's going to happen, it kind of narrows down already who's going to win. And I'm going to trust my gut. Shayna Baszler looked dominant in the Rumble. Shayna Baszler looked dominant in the Elimination Chamber. Shayna Baszler looked dominant in her feud against Becky and pretty much got even though someone would call it a clean win, it was a bogus loss to Becky at Mania with that little roll-up pin or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I think this is if WWE does not have her look dominant and be dominant in this match, they've already given up on Shayna. In my opinion, I don't think that's the case. I think they're completely sold on her. I think Becky has actually been prolonged on TV longer just due to the pandemic, needing all the talent and star power they can get. But I think this is the perfect way to set up the Shayna Baszler match for when the time is right. They just let her hold a briefcase, be that arrogant Shayna that she is on TV, and just hold the briefcase till we get back to live crowds, and then you'll see her cash it in. I think Shayna wins this match. I think she looks extremely dominant in this match, or throughout the night, I should say, because it's not just a match. It's the match in a sense. But I think Shayna wins that.
Real quick, Lynn says, Bayley over Tamina with Sasha turning on Bayley. Then he says, Lacey winning the ladies' Money in the Bank, setting a triple threat down the road. I mean, if Lacey Evans wins this, I'd be okay with it. I just don't think it's happening.
Listen, guys, we don't necessarily care for Shayna Baszler in a way that's like we are sold on her. I actually got into an argument with somebody in a wrestling group because they were calling me a Shayna lover. No, I don't really care for her. I think she's middle of the pack for me. I think her promos are boring. I think her in-ring ability is decent.
She's just a female version of Brock Lesnar is what they're treating her to be.
Yeah, I consider Ronda Rousey to be that more than her. But I like other people in this match. I would much rather see. People are gonna think I'm crazy. I would much rather see Dana Brooke win it because that's the history of the Money in the Bank match. I would love to see someone who would be unbelievable to win it. I am a Mella is money person. I would be more than okay if Carmella won it again. And I like Lacey Evans, and I think she has not been given the push that she deserves. They keep putting her in the title picture and not letting her go over. And so I would much rather see any of the SmackDown people win that match. I don't want Nia Jax to win it. She could be put into a women's title picture whenever she wants. Shayna Baszler could have that same thing, and so could Asuka.
We got one more match to give our predictions on. We got to wrap this up in about 2 minutes. Daniel Bryan, Rey Mysterio, Aleister Black, King Corbin, Otis, and AJ Styles for the men's Money in the Bank title match. I think this is the hardest one to predict on the card, which is a good thing. I mean, because it leaves you intrigued for what my opinion is going to be I think this is going to be match of the night, in my opinion. If I had to
all night long.
If I had to pick, I'd say Aleister Black. But here's my logic, real quick. I'm ruling out Daniel Bryan. I'm ruling out Rey Mysterio. I'm reluctantly ruling out Otis because I think it'd be too soon. I hope that they don't I hope they don't give it to King Corbin. Here's my logic. If they don't have Aleister Black win it, they're going to have Corbin win it and maybe set up a feud with Aleister Black and AJ Styles. But maybe they set up a feud with Otis and AJ Styles and have Aleister Black win the Money in the Bank. Maybe they make AJ Styles a face and have him feud with Corbin. I don't know. There's a lot of ways they could go about this. But if I had to pick, I would say Aleister Black.
This one's tough for me because I can't rule out some of those guys. For Rey Mysterio, I like the storyline that it's the only thing he really hasn't accomplished in his career. I don't think he wins, though. I like Daniel Bryan, but I don't think he needs the push with the Money in the Bank, although he's not really I think his first time with it was kind of lackluster, in my opinion. But I don't think he needs to push at this point. They like King Corbin, man. And his first time cashing in was a fail.
Funny.
It's hard not to consider him as a favorite from the standpoint that they like him. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I don't think Otis is in the running. I think you'll see some Dolph Ziggler interaction in that match to kind of take him out of it. My two it comes down to, though, is Aleister or AJ. Not because AJ needs it, but because it would be the perfect thing to get AJ back in the title picture. Mm-hmm. And if he's going to be a face, right now it doesn't look like it. His match back on Raw was definitely very heelish.
Right.
But it would be, whether heel or face, I think it's the perfect way to get him back in the title picture. If I was to go with my gut, I would say AJ Styles, but I'm actually not going to. I'm going with Aleister Black because I think he needs it. I think he has been consistent. I think he is a great performer. I think this is the perfect thing to do. Give him the Money in the Bank briefcase. Do not have him cash it in anytime soon, and have him just run the roster like he's been doing, be dominant, and make him a scary thing to be holding a anytime title opportunity whenever he wants. And when we get back to having live crowds and it's time, that Aleister Black reminds me of CM Punk in a way that when it's time for him to cash in, he's going to be a huge star.
Agreed.
And I think that's where I'm going with that. We'll probably see other matches get announced for Money in the Bank. War Raiders and Street Profits will probably happen, as Sonya, Mandy Rose will probably be a pre-show match. So there's other ones that we probably can't predict without knowing that they're going to be there.
Maybe we'll have Gronk on the card and have him drop the 24/7 title to
It would be great,
R-Truth.
so we can get back to a little comedy gimmick with Truth, but because those would be great during this time to be having more R-Truth comedy gimmicks. But
you mentioned possibly a Sami Zayn IC title match with Drew Gulak.
I did read that.
I'd appreciate that.
We might see that SmackDown.
I'd be okay with it, but again, we, like Cole said, we might see it on SmackDown as well. I want to end the show with reading some of your guys' comments. Lynn says, same. Shayna is too rough and stiff and less emotional, referring to us not being sold on Shayna, or at least, big on her. Dusty says, Ronda Rousey comes out of nowhere and distracts Shayna to start a feud. potentially. I mean,
Yeah.
Ronda was at WWE headquarters earlier in the year. I don't think it was whenever they were shooting the Money in the Bank matches, because you guys got to remember all these Money in the Bank matches, or all of them, the men's and women's Money in the Bank matches. I think from what I'm reading, those are going to be the only taped segments of the pay-per-view. The rest of it's going to be live. Thomas says Aleister Black. Lynn says AJ or Aleister. Thomas says please not Corbin. I agree. Adrian makes a good point. I don't see AJ going face. He needs to embrace being the new quote-unquote dead man after being buried alive. Dusty says Corbin because WWE, like the majority of sports, want to bank on getting Patrick Showtime Mahomes to sit front row once fans come back. All right, guys. We went almost 2 hours. I appreciate you commenting, chiming in, participating, and hanging out with us. We'll be back on Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central Time. We'll talk about Money in the Bank. We'll recap that. We'll talk about Dark Side of the Ring, UWF, that aired on Tuesday night. We would talk about it today, but there's just our Thursday shows are usually so jam-packed that we can't get to Dark Side of the Ring until the following Monday. So, that all being said, come back and hang out with us on Monday. Lynn, I appreciate you hanging out with us. You guys have a good weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy. For Cole, for Alex, and myself, we will see you guys on Monday.
And so, goodbye. Mwah. And good night. Bang!
This podcast was a presentation of LightUpMedia.fm.